want to know how to actually understand a building inspection report and how some people use them to negotiate thousands of dollars off. I want to open up a little bit more around negotiating some large sums of money off. Myles Clark, with over 30,000 followers on socials, entrepreneur and building inspector, this man is uber qualified to walk us through the details you need to understand as a property investor that can massively help you when you're growing your portfolio.
There's now products out there and people and technology that just makes this whole process much easier and it's less scary. You could save yourself.
Sharing the details of exactly how you should approach a building inspection to both the building inspector and the agent.
If you have a damaged pipe and it's in the middle of the house, back in the day, I'd be shitting myself. Now, all from a little and it's job done. Because what I always recommend in these situations between buyers and vendors, I just want clarity for everyone. So I say to the buyer,
if you've been looking at buying a property and want to understand the details of how a building inspection works and how it could possibly save you thousands or even tens of thousands off the purchase price, you're going to enjoy this episode. My name's Todd Sloan. This is the Pizza and Property Podcast. This episode is powered by InvestorKit, Inside 2, Full Circle Finance, Property Developer Network, and Suburbs Finder. More about our amazing show sponsors in the show notes below. But right now, let's jump into the episode with Myles Clark and understand what are the lesser spoken about but extremely important details of buying property. Myles Clark, how you going, man?
good mate, yourself?
Mate, very good. Good to be here in your studio in Melbourne. I wanted to take advantage of being here, getting into on the tools on the project. And you've been someone that we've been chatting a little while, but I've been wanting to get on the show for a while. Your Instagram presence is awesome. And if you haven't seen Myles Clark, check him out at It's Myles Clark on Insta. You got some pretty cool videos there, man.
Thanks very much, mate. Yeah, it's been a little bit of work we've been doing over the last few years. We've got the Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. It's all the same handle. And pretty much we're just out to help educate the novice person, and we didn't intend to, but get some traders on board with that building construction, real estate, through the lens of a building inspector and all those good things associated with it, mate.
And that's exactly what I want to do with you today, because I want to start pulling apart more around the ins and outs of building inspections, stuff that people maybe should be a little bit more cautious of, stuff that maybe people are over cautious of and can cost them the deal. But a little bit later in the episode, I also want to talk a little bit more about a building inspection and sometimes opportunities that can come up that you might think, oh, I should run away from it, but can actually be a bit of a lemons to lemonade situation where maybe you can get 10, 20 grand off if you actually play your cards right. And this is obviously both sides of the fence. If you're the seller, you want to protect yourself. If you're the buyer, well, naturally you want to get the best deal that you can. But is there anything you want to kind of set the stage with before I get into all the questions, man?
Not necessarily. You are correct in saying that. Like, I see it all too often where there's so many opportunities of people going in. There's all these major defects within the home itself, and they can get themselves a ripper discount in regards to that aspect of purchasing the property. And then you see it from the other perspective as well, where these sellers get to a sticky situation where they've got to sell the property, and these major defects are the ones that are sort of pushing them over that line, and they've sort of given away a bit too much in regards to what their capital is. So it's a very interesting industry that we work in, and steps have to be taken, make sure we do the right things and go from there.
Can I start off by actually asking you, what is a major defect? And for anyone on iTunes or Spotify, I'm doing air quotes right now, but like, what actually is it? Because it sounds terrifying, but there's a proper definition.
Yes. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to read it from the Australian standard. So each building inspector has to follow the Australian standard in regards to how they do the reporting. But what you'll find is each individual building inspector will interpret a defect one way or the other. Okay. But basically, what I'm bringing up here is the actual definition. So major defect, a defect of significant magnitude where rectification has to be carried out in order to avoid unsafe conditions, loss of utility, or further deterioration of the property.
Okay, so straight away, I'm seeing a bit of interpretation there.
Yeah.
And is this where things can get a bit grey?
Exactly right. Yeah. So it says here a defect of significant magnitude where rectification has to be carried out in order to avoid unsafe conditions, loss of utility, or further deterioration of the property. So this is where, like, there's been multiple examples within the industry where some inspectors have not put down a leaky tap as a major defect, and they've had a client that has gone in and the leaky defect wasn't raised as a major issue, and all of a sudden, through the litigation process, they get told that, oh, well, this is a valid claim because that leaky tap technically can lead to these major issues within the home. But as me as an individual, I think it's a bit of a piss take because
it's a leaky tap.
It's a leaky tap, yeah. Like, it's the magnitude of it isn't so significant that it's going to cause these major issues. But if you do a long enough time horizon, it can. So there's this real interesting area in, like, sort of how that works. For me personally, like with major defects, I like to look at it as like action needs to be taken now. That's it. So a safety issue is an easy one, like balustrading not working, not operational, run safe.
Obviously
Done,
needs to be
hands
taken
down.
care of. Yep.
There's footing movement within the home. The house is sinking, right? Now it's already past the point of it's slowly sinking, right? Because it's a slow burn, to the point of it's already got to that point where rectification is required. Underpinning may be required, restumping may be required. There's drainage issues, right? So it's a major issue that needs to be done. Or something's not serviceable. I had one the other day. It was just, I put it as a major defect because it was just, and it was a simple fix. The toilet, I went to flush it, it wasn't working. So I turned on the bib just on the wall, and all of a sudden water just was pissing out of the cistern, right? Nothing was stopping it. Now that's just a replacement of a toilet. It's not a big deal. But at that time,
That's a
it's
major
not a
defect.
functional, it's just action it now, get it sorted out. So there's all these like interesting grey areas, and that's how it's interpreted by the inspector at the time on the day is what sort of contributes to what's a major defect compared to what's a minor defect. And it's a very interesting area to work within. But again, when it comes down to like the contract of sale and getting out of contracts in general, it's the major defects within the building itself is what you need to exit that contract. That's in some states, actually,
Yeah,
I must
I was gonna
admit.
say,
So that's in Victoria. That's how we
Yeah.
do it. I've been learning more about other states as well, speaking to these other building inspectors. And then sometimes there's a price component to it, like a certain amount of defects is how you can get out of a contract, which I find interesting. But
And in Perth, you've got to actually give the vendor the rights to rectify it as well, where you don't have to in South Australia or Victoria.
yes,
Like, so yeah, there's all these little nuances with this as well. But as far as the top three major defects that you'd see that are, again, major defects, what do you see most commonly pop up that is something that really needs to have attention to it eventually, but isn't the thing that you should be really running away from and killing the deal?
there's a couple that I come off the top of my head. The first one would be the footing movement one. So for me personally, it just seems to be more and more often. Now, it's obviously dependent on where you live, soil conditions, which really highlights the issues.
Yep.
But footing movement can be rectified quite easily. And now when we do a report, it's just major defect, right? It's not like there's no scale of how major the defect is. So what you'll find in some situations, you've got a bit of footing movement. It might just be one small corner of the house, okay? Might be a bit of damage in the ground plumbing, and there might be a small localised area of doing some underpinning. The cost might be to dig a hole, fix a pipe, inject the soil. You might be up for $4,000.
Talk to me about that, injecting the soil, because this isn't something that's been around forever, which I think is one of the reasons a lot of people think this is going to cost me an arm and a leg.
100%, yeah. So as I go through this process, I learn a lot of things in regards to how we rectify these defects through the professionals. So there's in those situations, there's two things: the in-ground plumbing issue, and then the underpinning itself. Okay, so underpinning is when it's a concrete slab or it's a strip footing, and they literally support that footing system so it doesn't subside further, or now they've got this injection system where they can lift it back up. Back in the day, what they used to do is they would dig like metre sort of increments, go down, pump it full of concrete, engineer gives it the old thumbs up, it's not going to subside any further, they've rectified the drainage issue, move on. Now that's very invasive. You're digging next to houses and pulling up driveways and doing all that sort of horrible thing. What they do now, it's very non-invasive. So they just drill specific holes in specific locations, inject these big rods into the ground. Now, in regards to what specific product goes into it, I'm not too sure. Slowly going through the process of learning that. But it stabilises the soil in that local area, and actually they can actually lift these buildings back up to a point where even me, it freaks me out how well they can do it. And it's a day's labour. A day's labour. They inject the soil, they lift the whole structure back up. These are 120-year-old buildings that have had these massive cracks for years. And that's it. They're engineers, they sign off on it. It's all done, neat, clean, squeaky. And the back end of that as well, it also comes down to these drainage issues. So I met a guy through this underpinner where if you have a damaged pipe, right, and it's in the middle of the house, underneath the concrete slab, back in the day, I'd be shitting myself, right? We've got to cut out slabs, visually get down there. It's a tough gig. Now, there's companies out there that have these $180,000 robots that can drive into the stormwater system or sewer, whatever it may be. Now, this example he gave me, it took them 7 hours to rectify this sewer issue. They drilled a bored pier straight through a sewer line, okay, and they poured the concrete. So the concrete's filling up the hole and it went into the pipe and then kept going up. This machine drove in, core drilled through the concrete out to the other side, then it pulls back out, it relines it, all from a little robot, and it's job done.
What's it called?
I don't fucking know what it's called, mate, but it's unbelievable. Like I said, because this is, it's a polished concrete slab.
Yeah.
It's something you would have just cut it out and try and make it look good and throw a rug and hope for the best. But there's now products out there and people and technology that just makes this whole process much easier and it's less scary. So like the mindset of most people now is like when you say footing movement, they freak out and they're like, oh my God, it's going to be $50,000. It actually might only be like $8,000. It's pretty straightforward. That's one of them.
So what I'm really hearing is then when you see something on a building report that is a major defect, even if it does fall into the category of actually no, this really is a major defect. This is something that you've got to really take seriously. Start getting quotes. Start really looking around. How much does it actually cost? Versus talking to Uncle Dave, who maybe did fix something similar 20 years ago, using 20 years ago technology, and it did cost him an arm and a leg.
That's 100%. Yeah, and that's why, if you're going through especially the negotiation process with that, if you sort of keep your cards close to yourself and you get the right people out and understand the cost implications rather than, because what I always recommend in these situations between buyers and vendors, I just want clarity for everyone. So I say to the buyer, like, go out, get the quote so you understand the value associated with it. So then you know what you're in for. And it's key to know the number because it can be 10 to 30 and you want to make sure that investment is right.
And as an investor, when you're trying to get stuff for as low a price as possible, this is where if you're dealing with an agent that doesn't have a lot of knowledge on it, you can, and I know this isn't what you advocate the same way, but putting property investor hat on very much for myself, you can use that to your advantage a bit more. I remember doing that a few times where we'd have people try and say, oh, this is going to cost us 20 grand to fix. But I'd actually, when I was the agent, got quotes for 4 grand. And it's like, no, actually, here you go. It's going to cost 4 grand. We've already got a quote for it. So if you're a lot more active as an agent, then you can protect your vendor. But if you're the purchaser and you're trying to get that for as better price as possible, you want the agent that's not as on the ball.
100%. And the thing that happens at the moment is it's still that mentality all the time. Like I have to proactively motivate these people, like the agent themselves, go and get some prices, mate. So you know what the impact is and you can help the vendor and or help the buyer come to a solution. Because not all, like obviously the people I work for aren't so much investors, they're just mums and dads that are freaking out, right? Just buying a house.
Of course.
So that clarity for both parties is what really drives it home. But if you're an investor and you're just going through the motions, if you have a good building inspector on your side who has a good network of people that are proactively helpful, you can go through the building inspection process. You can understand the major defects that are there. Right, there's major defects in the home. Agents, as you understand, material facts, that has to be disclosed. So it's going to be an issue for the vendors either way. But if it's an opportunity that it isn't so impactful on the home, that when you've got your little quotes there and you can understand the cost implications, you can keep that to yourself. You can understand what it's actually going to cost. Then you can go through the negotiation process of like, all right, you can play hardball and get a good deal, and which is completely fair and reasonable. And you might be in a situation where you're comfortable doing that, and that's the way business works. And I think that's fine because that's just the way it normally is. And if agents are too lazy to actually put some work in and get to the actual number themselves, well, it's their problem in regards to that.
So what's the second major defect that people really need to be aware of but maybe not run away from?
Another one very common that comes up quite often is the garage ceilings. So a garage ceiling, just based on the way the boys hang it over those decades, it sags, it drops, it just relies on the glue. And because you've got these different atmospheric pressures and all these things that attribute to this issue, you get these big saggings of the ceiling. And everyone's heard a story of someone's ceiling collapsing. So us as inspectors, we look in, all right, well, the ceiling's sagging to a point where it's going to collapse in a period of time. So that's always a major defect that does come up quite often. And that's one where, the fix of it isn't too significant. It's just get someone in, strip it down, redo it, job done. So that's probably another good example, I would say.
So even if you are actually fixing that, stripping everything back to zero and getting it resheeted, you're not really looking at that much. Like it's going to cost you a few $1,000s potentially.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So, and then again, it's when is it actually going to fall? I've had that when I was an agent and people would be screaming that the ceiling's about to collapse, and then I'd go back there to appraise the property in 5 years' time and it's still there and they never did anything with it and it's totally fine.
Mate, I had a house the other week and it wasn't just the garage, it was every single room in this property. And the sag, it was just a standard bedroom, it was like 3.5 by 3.5. The sag was probably, mate, it was like 150 mil in the middle of the room. And I was like, shit, this is held up by cornice. This whole room is held up by cornice. I couldn't believe it. Even the lights were hanging onto the plasterboard like a dear life. But it'd been like that for 50 years. Like that's from existing. you know, and no one's ever done anything about it. So
it's a look.
It does hang in for a long time until it really does drop. Like if you can't see it dropping,
I reckon I'd replace it if it was 150 mil drop.
Mate, it was a pisser.
All right, what's our third and final one for this, man, before we move on to the next part?
So the third and final one I would say is subfloor plumbing issues. Excessive moisture around the house is what leads to footing movement.
Yep.
So you get underneath the house itself, under the subfloor, which is that cavity that we hate crawling through. It's full of spiders and cobwebs and all those good things. Mm-hmm. Never bodies or cash, unfortunately. Fortunately, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'd be all right with cash, but I don't know about bodies.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. Again, underneath the house, a major defect for me personally is, all right, there's some stormwater or a sewer line, and it's got a slow crack or drip, or there might be a water line under there which has, like when something's in use, it has a slow leak, right?
Yep.
Now, what that does, it leaves water and dampness on the subfloor itself.
Okay.
On the soil, okay? Mm-hmm. So now that's conducive to termites, it creates mold, it can lead to footing movement. Now, a pipe that has a slow leak all of a sudden can have a very big leak and completely flood a subfloor. So that gets put down as a major defect any day of the week to ensure that it gets rectified sooner or later, you know, for our buyers. But, you know, the fix is pretty straightforward. Yeah, get a plumber under there, redivert some stuff, rectify some things, might be a day's labour. Nothing too significant.
So you're looking at 500 to 1,000 bucks.
Well, that's exactly right, 100%. Yep. But on the report, it's major defect, leaks under the house. You know, that's how it's written and read, because that's actually what it is.
And it looks terrifying.
Yeah, because it should be, because you need to get it rectified.
So I want to start pivoting this into what kind of questions should you be asking a building inspector to understand the difference between the two? Because like it's good to go through this now, and like there's going to be a few that you're covering off that are already going to really help people. But let's start talking more so around jumping on the phone, you're reading through the report. What should you be asking a building inspector if you're a complete novice at this?
I think the first thing you should be doing is when you're engaging the building inspector, the first question to ask them is, do you give us a call before you give us the report? All right. Now, the communication there, it needs to occur, because the reason being is, like we were just saying in this before, if you just get given a blank report that has major defects, there's not enough space to fully explain the whole, you know, the scope, like why it occurs, all these types of things. Mm-hmm. These conversations should be had before you get the report. So first, make sure your inspector you get actually makes a phone call and can communicate.
Yep.
All right. When you go through the process and all of a sudden, you know, all right, there's major defects, they're speaking to you about it. These are the questions you want to be asking is, they'll explain to you what the major defect is, and then all you need to do is go, right, so what steps do we need to take to ensure that we can get a clear understanding as to the cost impact associated with that major defect? So how significant is the major defect? When you saw the footing movement, was it the whole entire property itself that has footing issues? Was it a small area? When you saw the ceiling sag, like my example, was it just the garage? Was it 75% of the whole entire house? Like sometimes these aren't expressed within the report itself in regards to the size and scope of the major defect. So I think just ask those questions. Now, inspectors can't give you costs to rectify things, but there's nothing wrong with giving them their honest opinion, because that's what they're paid to do.
Yep.
In regards to the extent of that major defect.
So what I'm really hearing is drill down into more detail.
Yeah, just ask more questions.
Like
get clear.
You're talking about the subfloor plumbing issue.
Yes.
So instead of just going, oh my God, there's a subfloor plumbing issue, how big is it? How much of a problem do you think it is? Like, has it actually caused mold? Like, as many answers as you can, because that's probably going to be the thing that is the difference between you going, actually, no, this is a gigantic problem, or no, this is, like you said, $500 or $1,000 to potentially fix.
100%, definitely, yeah. And a good quality building inspector will know what it takes to rectify these issues, because ideally they're builders. They're experienced people that have been through all different types and ages of homes. They have all this building knowledge. They don't know to the dollar how much it's going to cost, but they can look at it and say, right, yeah, that's going to take a plumber a day. Easy. Or get a plumber out there to have a look at it, and he'll just give you the firm quote. He's like, yeah, it's going to take me a day, $100 of material. It's just about just asking more questions and getting more clear on it. Don't be scared when you see a major defect. Don't freak out and think that, oh, it's all going to fall down and everything's horrible, because it's not the case every single time. It's just about getting clear. So get specific, get quotes, get a good understanding, and you'll be sweet moving forward.
What are some of the things that people really can expect to see? Stuff that's pretty normal and more maintenance list kind of stuff.
Cracks in walls, I think, is a big one. Now, it's a difficult one because from an inspector's perspective, there's general movement in homes. Happens all the time. Doors don't close. All of a sudden, it's summertime, doors open, no dramas.
Yep.
Right? You get hairline cracks on walls. people assume it's just, it's footing movement, the whole house is going to fall down. So there's a lot of time you get a lot of cracks in walls, and it could be the age of the construction, stuff like that. They're defects that are always going to come up all the time. The other ones, but they're not always a concern because there's no structural movement, it's all fine. This is just general movement. Tick, move on, patch it, all good. With regards to other examples to sort of common defects, shower recesses and poor maintenance, that's a big part. Not a lot of novice people understand how important it is to maintain their shower recess and their wet areas and regrouting and resiliconing and all these types of things. This is probably one of the most common things that comes up with regards to my experience. And just staying on top of maintenance. When maintenance is left, it becomes a defect. If you're not looking after the house, it won't look after you. It'll turn to shit. Okay, and that's the problem that people face, and that's why when they're selling homes, they realise, oh my God, I should have, that's why they invest all their time and effort in up-speccing the house, because they're trying to sell it rather than just continuously maintaining it over the period of time. Cracks, grouting, just operational things like doors not latching, things like that. Gutters, always just full of debris and issues in regards to that. So that, just cleaning out gutters is a very simple one, because if you don't, water can pool there, it can rust through, water can backflow into the house when there's heavy rains. That's a very basic one. It can block all your drains. That's a basic one. Yeah, they're sort of the common ones. There's bloody heaps. Like roof tiles. Roof tiles are a pain in the ass, mate. Like, you've always got to maintain them. They crack. No one gets up there. They get up there every few years. Like, you got to get someone out there just to maintain all your things. Just repoint, remortar. The cracked tile, like a cracked tile can lead to all these other issues. They're the very common issues that I come across all the bloody time.
So if you're seeing any of these kinds of issues on a building report, be aware of them. Take them into account, but these are really the things that's like you're almost guaranteed to see these on an older house because they're just as common as anything.
100%. Like, for me personally, I think I've done over 1,500 reports I've done. I've had maybe 10 houses that have been squeaky clean. Like, I'm talking squeaky. Half of those were brand new houses.
Yep.
And then the other half were just the older generation looking after their shit. It was great. And they were a lovely couple, manicured gardens, everything was neat, clean, maintained, looked after, and there was nothing to do.
My oppa's got a 1992 Ford Falcon that genuinely still has the new car smell.
Yeah, and that's it. You've looked after that asset, and then it will look after you in the long run, and it makes all the difference, 100%.
Buying sight unseen and buying borderless is becoming more and more common. Not everyone's comfortable with it. Personally, I've done it several times now, but I've got several checks and balances in place. What concerns me is there's been some people that I've been talking to that will literally just rely on a building report to go, it's okay, had a building inspector look at it, it's fine. Talk me through the things that aren't really covered in most building reports, not to scare people away from buying sight unseen, but to make sure that they're doing it correctly and they're actually getting all of the info. Because then there's potentially some other checks that still need to happen.
This is a common issue that comes up all the time with regards to people purchasing homes. Now, they have an expectation that I'm a builder. I know everything to do with building and construction. That's a lie. I'm not a plumber. I'm not an electrician. I'm none of these specialised trades that really know the ins and outs. Like, I have a good understanding of all these things. And most building inspectors have a good understanding as well, if they're a good building inspector. The things that we do not cover as building inspectors, we can give you a good scope of the house, the major issues, like the things to look into, right? And then we recommend specific trades to come in and actually give some further insights on items. Now, if it was me and I was going elsewhere to buy interstate, a couple of things that I would be really looking at as checks and balances is definitely getting the building inspection done, obviously. In-ground plumbing inspections are worth their weight in gold. Now, most major
plumbing inspections.
Yes.
Okay. I don't hear of these very commonly.
All right. So the reason why this is so important is because when there's footing movement within a home, the first step is you check the in-ground plumbing. So it could be sewer or stormwater. Most of the time, the footing issues are due to these damaged drainage issues. There's trees and stuff. It's blocked, whatever it may be, right? If you can do the building inspection, do an in-ground plumbing inspection, and also it would be good to get a sparky to come out to do like an electrical inspection, check switchboards are all correct, safety switches are all good, because it's going to be home dependent on age is probably where I'll step that in. If you knock out those three, you're going to have a ripper scope in regards to what is going on with this house. The only thing I could think of after that to really just like nail it all together is some things that we don't do on our inspections themselves as building inspectors. We don't look at like, does the air conditioning work? Does every single light switch work perfectly? Is it
Yeah.
wired correctly?
Do
Does
you
the oven
turn
work?
every gas burner on?
Does the
Like,
gas? Exactly
yeah.
right. So we don't do these things. So if you can get each individual trade to go and check the operation of all those types of items, collate it all together, everyone can talk to each other and understand the full scope or issues that are there, then you'll be set up for success. Because if you skip out on one, say it's just a building inspection, you don't get electrical or in-ground plumbing, he's not going to pick up the switchboard issues, or he's not going to pick up some poor wiring, or he's not going to pick up all these types of defects. He's not going to pick up, the hot water system is about to explode and, the house is going to catch fire, because it's not part of their scope as per the Australian standard. Okay?
Yep.
Now, and he might pick up items like this footing movement, and then he'll recommend all these trades to do these steps. So if you just get on the front foot, you'll be sweet.
So if you're buying this sight unseen and you've got an in-ground plumbing inspection,
Yep.
a Sparky doing inspection, and a building inspection, you're pretty much getting everything covered. Maybe apart from a few of the appliances being turned on, but I guess if you get a Sparky there, they can turn on the air conditioner. They'll
test PowerPoints and stuff like that. Yeah,
everything
100%.
will be checked. All right, now this isn't the norm. Like, I've been doing this a long time. I never hear of people getting in-ground plumbing inspections. Is this literally just calling up a local plumber and being like, hey man, want in-ground plumbing inspection? Like, is that the standard and I've just kind of missed this one?
Basically, man, yeah. Yeah, so like a lot of plumbers, a lot of drainage plumbers now, they all have cameras. Like a drainage plumber, to understand the scope of their works, throws a camera down all the stormwater pipe, for example, figures out where the blockages are, understands what's going on, and then they put a scope together. Like, they can't see what's in ground to put a scope. So they put a scope together in regards to what's required to fix it. There are drainage plumbers that just specifically inspect and write reports and say, right, these are the issues, this is how much it's going to cost to fix it. And it's gold. And if you've got a house that's got earthenware, which is like a ceramic in-ground old school system that they used to use, you are got a very high probability that it's going to be knackered somewhere along the round, like around the house. So there'll be a tree root, it'll be cracked, it'll be broken, it'll be open. It's drama. So you already know off the front foot that if an in-ground plumbing inspector, he comes out, inspects the drainage, he's going to look and go, all right, sweet, we'll see how far we go with this.
Yeah.
And then provide a price on how much it's going to cost to
Yep.
dig everything up and redo it, right?
We had that not long ago, Bianca and I, at home. And it's like lovely living in a 100-year-old house. But it's also the plumbing was like, I think they're the old like terracotta.
That's exactly what it is.
Like,
Earthenware. It is.
Yeah.
It
was a problem. Anyway. So wrapping things up, I want to open up a little bit more around negotiating like some large sums of money off. And this is both on both sides of the fence to protect a seller, because let's face it, if you're investing in property, you're not going to hold all of it forever. You are going to be the seller one day. But then also when you're buying, you want to get stuff as cost effectively as possible. So it's kind of a protection and opportunity kind of mixed into one. Now, what's one of the most common things that you're really seeing that I guess someone can use on either side of this?
Bathrooms.
Okay, expand on that.
So bathrooms are a pain in the ass because they can leach their water issues all throughout a room itself and cause a lot of drama. So you might have a leaky shower, tiles are falling off the wall, it's damaged, there's water getting into the substrate behind it. Now, to the extent of how far that goes can determine significantly how much that scope of work is going to be.
Okay.
But more or less, like, and I've had this on numerous occasions where I've gone in, like the shower recess was completely knackered, right? It was, the tiles were falling off the wall, like it was hilarious.
Yeah.
So, for me, it's a major defect. That's got to get rectified 100% of the time. Now, they've gone back and renegotiated costs and got like 25 grand off the house, which I found like cool, good on them. I was stoked for them. But like in reality for me, the only thing that needed technically to be fixed was just the shower recess itself. You might be up for 4 or 5 grand. So, because when you put it in the report, like the major defect says, major defect within the house, water leaks, bathroom issues, and if it goes into the floor itself, like it says, pretty much review, rectify, demo, do this. Now, some inspectors, their reports won't go into crazy detail of the full scope what needs to be done. Mm-hmm. It just says bathroom leak, major defect.
But it'll be made to sound like the whole bathroom needs to be ripped out.
It can be, yeah.
Yeah.
Or for example, like if you can't match in the tiles from 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So, in some...
Would you want to, anyway?
in some circumstances, like if you do replace the shower recess, it's just going to look it's not going to look like the rest of the area. So it's like a full bathroom gut out and redo, which is a $25,000 job minimum, really, if you're paying someone to do it.
So I guess it depends on what you're going for as your asset. If you're going for a reval and you're doing the reno, then maybe it is going to be really important. However, if it's something that you're going to buy and otherwise you can maybe just get some white tiles on the floor in the recess and you can just make it look like it's something separate that's actually been put in there.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look crazy, then yeah, 3, 4, 5 grand. But if you can still get 25 grand off, which isn't unreasonable to do a bathroom now for 20, 25 grand, it's maybe a bit on the high side for some properties, but a bit on the low side for others.
100% agreed. 25 is a very comfortable number that I would give. And you are 100% correct. A lot of investors, when they speak to me about it, they're like, I'm like, what's your intentions with the house? And they give me a bit of a spiel so I can understand their perspective of what they're going to do. And they're like, oh, it's going to rent it out for 5 years or whatever. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. I'm like, right. The shower's knackered. I go, just all you got to do is you just got to make the place functional. Like, I'm a functional person. I really don't care how it looks. So for me, I'm pretty chill with it. It doesn't make a big deal. It's just, so all you got to focus on the shower recess area, get that right, get it all good, neaten up the areas around it, and you're sweet. The rest of it will be fine. It will look a bit silly, but it'll be okay.
And I think that this is the thing that I really want to hit home, that if you're on the seller's side, it's actually one of the benefits, and it's why I love what you're doing with Oz Prop Report, is actually understanding what the problems are first, being able to fix something that can be negotiated against you for a $20,000, $25,000 potential discount that could be very easy to justify, that could potentially be fixed for a few $1,000s. If you're the seller, fix it for a few grand. Take that negotiation token away from the purchaser. However, if you're the purchaser and you can lean on that, well, then it's your job to pay as less as possible, and it's the seller's job to get you to pay as much as possible. So by being able to actually balance the two there, it's a huge, huge benefit to understand it from both perspectives.
100%. This is the thing that sort of motivated me to do what I'm doing at the moment is just to help try provide more transparency and clarity of what you're doing. So I always see the stories, and I'm the one that is causing all these issues. Where I'll bring up the major defects, and the vendor's freaking out, and then I'm like, I know they're in the negotiation process. It's heated, everyone's stressed, and they're taking big discounts because they've got to buy this other house. It's chaos, man. And that's why I start promoting them. This is why it's good to understand the issues up front beforehand, because in the long run, it benefits so many more people. It benefits the real estate agent, because they now know what they are negotiating with. They can set the price accordingly in regards to the issues that are there. So rather than it's a $600,000 house and then all of a sudden there's footing issues and then this is where the buyers, they push hard. All right, we want 50 grand off. But because they've understood the issues prior, now they've got quotes in place. They understand the cost implications. They've mitigated it. They've brought it down. The sale price is based around it. So when the buyer comes in and he gets his building inspector in and comes up with all these issues, and they're like, well, what's going on here? Blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, we're aware of it. And obviously the agent needs to, tell them anyway if there are major issues, but they're already aware of it. We understand there's no negotiation here. You're negotiating the price to buy it. That's it. Not the issues that you're picking up from your building inspector. So it's a very interesting, it goes both ways. But yeah, I think it also helps improve the price of the house. If you go in and if you rectify some of these defects for, invest 5 grand, you could save yourself 25 grand or increase the value of the property. There's conversations obviously with agents and how to increase that value, but your building inspector can also have some decent input in regards to that as well.
Absolutely. And depending on how you do it as well, there is certain conversations that's potentially beneficial to have with a conveyancer or a solicitor, and where you can actually keep the purchase price at the same spot and it's different in every state, but in some states known as what's a cash back. So that $25,000 that's come off of the price, you actually still borrow for that, but you can actually get that back in cash to actually rectify the works.
Oh, really?
So if you're actually trying to renovate the property, can just really help with cash flow. But again, it's slightly different in every state, so absolutely talk to your conveyancer, talk to your accountant about that, and talk to your mortgage broker as well. But there's some other details that can really benefit you there.
That's news to me. I like that.
Yeah,
cool.
I've done it several times.
Yeah, ripper.
Yeah. So getting towards the pointy end of things then, Myles, what's an action step you really want to leave people with to be able to, they can take out their headphones, they're about to buy a property, they're about to engage a building inspector, start really going through reports. What's something that they can do right now to start feeling more comfortable with this process and really using it to the best of their ability?
The action steps I'd be taking forward to make sure you set yourself up for success would be do some research on your building inspectors. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you want to find local guys. Ideally, they have good relationships with everyone in the local area. And when you go through sort of each building inspector, just give them a phone call. Have a conversation to them about how their processes work. You really want them to be someone that does follow-up calls after they're done on site, before they issue the report. You want them available to answer all the questions and queries you will have from your building report itself. And you want to know that they're qualified individuals. Now, an inspector that doesn't really want to answer those things or just gives a blank report is usually someone that doesn't really know what they're talking about. They need to verbally explain each individual issue.
Being able to actually drill down, like you said before, how big, how long, what is it? Like,
And be confident about it. You know, they back themselves up rather than just issue a report to cover their ass, which is what we don't want. So most inspectors have their websites. They have sample reports. You can read through and see that, you know, how they present it. Images are great. Good descriptions are great. Actual action steps is important, not just blank statements that mean nothing to you, like crack on the wall, seek an engineer. Useless. But I think, those conversations are the big point. And cost, just because they're cheap for a reason, they're expensive for a reason, in some circumstances, I would just look for a sort of a mid to high price building inspector. In different states, it changes significantly on the cost because that's what they're worth. Okay. But you really want to make sure you can have that connection with them, have a conversation with them. They can answer all the questions. They're helpful. They're proactive. They want to work for you and make sure your process is easy. That's all I'll be doing.
Myles, we've arguably arrived at the most important question of the entire show. Myles Clark, what is your favourite pizza?
My favourite pizza, I would say, it's got to be like a Mexicana, something with some jalapenos on it.
Did you say jalapenos?
Yeah. Bit of spice.
Yeah.
And it's got to have like a thick base, Yeah.
Okay, all right, so you're not a thin, nothing crispy?
Nah, the missus does like, the wood fire traditional styles, which, hey, I'm all about it. But like, I just want something that's going to fill me up. But not too much cheese, Like you can't go too sick on the cheese.
How do you feel about a bit of sour cream if you're doing a Mexican pizza?
All right, no, you've gone too far. No.
Oh, is it? No. Wow.
It cold. It cools it down,
I can't remember where it was, but I had this Mexican pizza once, and it was like full of jalapenos, exactly what you're describing. But there was almost like a guacamole sour cream kind of thing in the center, and then all the edges was just corn chips.
Oh my God.
It was pretty good, but it doesn't sound like it's your cup of tea then.
No, because you get to the bottom, it's this soggy piece.
It was a bit saggy.
Mess.
Yeah. It tasted good, but yeah. All right, Myles, if anyone wants to find you, follow you, everything that you're doing, and a lot with Ozprop Report, which is coming soon, very soon. We're going to leave links to all of your socials in the show notes below. Mate, I think this is not the last time that we're going to be speaking with you on the show, and it's certainly not the last time we're going to be seeing you because you're working on some amazing stuff, man. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, mate.